You're very welcome. My name is Jacinta. This is Build Beyond You. This channel is dedicated to those who are in the process of rediscovering your identities. That is nurturing those innate abilities and overcoming obstacles that hinder you from flourishing in your true identity, with the intent for you to be able to step into your true leadership authority. When you step into your leadership authority, it will require that you push to the next level, which we are focusing on this month, stewardship. Stewardship is what has been entrusted into your possession. What are those responsibilities, whether inherited or acquired? Maybe it's a promotion at work, a business. What has been entrusted to you, and how do you nurture that? How do you make sure you preserve, set boundaries, maintain, and continue with a vision, that conviction that pushes you from one level to the other? So the intention for you as a leader to nurture those responsibilities and what is it entrusted in your possessions is for you to be able to pass it on to the next. You don't want your vision to just die, especially if you own a business or if you intend to build one. But it starts with building inwardly, and then you go out and build. Tuesday, we unpacked the awareness of what has been entrusted to you. Wednesday, we talked about consistency. How do you ensure that you remain consistent? And Thursday, we looked at what hinders or what interrupts your consistency as you're building, as you're leading, as you're stewarding what has been entrusted to you. What exactly interrupts you? You have to be able to identify that, name it, and then look at how you can remove that from hindering you. Today, we are going to think about when shedding feels like you're losing yourself. Someone said, as soon as you discover yourself, you feel like you have lost. Today, let's unpack that. When shedding feels like losing yourself, what is that transition before you move forward? Awareness is what has been placed in your hands. Consistency is ensuring that you stay long enough to nurture that has been placed in your hand. And then the hindrances that we were looking at yesterday, we managed to identify the patterns through answering those reflective questions that I give, patterns of dishonor, inherited obstacles that interrupt stewardship. Okay? And you agree with me that stewardship, inconsistency, is not laziness. It's tolerated dysfunction, those inherited patterns, survival adaptation. January, we're looking at how do we move from survival mode to stewardship. When we begin confronting these patterns, sometimes it can feel destabilizing. That's why we are here today. I want us to think about what happens when whatever is being taken off looks like you're losing yourself. You know how an eagle goes through that phase of shedding off and then comes back. So after you identify that root pattern, after you confront, for example, dishonor or trauma, negative behavioral patterns, avoidance. Sometimes we avoid what we need to confront, what we need to nurture, or any inherited negative pattern. There's that strange emotional experience. You feel exposed, you feel a bit tender, you feel disoriented, you may even feel like, I don't know myself. And that's where most of us panic as leaders. We think we're losing ourselves, we're becoming unstable, we're regressing. But what is actually happening is you're not losing yourself. You are losing the version of yourself that survived dysfunction. So in the process of losing that version of who you have been in survival mode, and now you've moved into stewardship. You've now understood the difference between the old you and the new you. You have survived all the misalignment, dysfunction, the negative behavioral patterns. Those survival identities, by the way, are very powerful because they protected you, they helped you endure, and they helped you build. So we cannot ignore what exactly that survival mode contributed to our lives. We cannot say, I wasted my time, I wasted my life. That survival mode was intentional because you have something to compare with. We don't compete with anybody else but ourselves. You compete with your you yesterday. That's the survival mode that protected you, that helped you to build. Now we look at it as it is because it's not going to take you into sustainable stewardship. So before we move forward, we must be able to understand and embrace this transition. Leaders who do not understand this transition will run back to that familiar dysfunction just so that we can feel stable again, because it is the familiar. It's more comfortable. I usually ask questions. What version of you are you shedding in this season? For example, are you the over-investor who builds to avoid discomfort? Are you the tolerant leader who endures negative behavioral patterns like dishonor, disrespect? Are you the performer who avoids vulnerability, Mrs. Perfect or Mr. Perfect? Are you the overfunctioner who compensates for others? Everything of yours is in override because you're just compensating for others. That version of you protected you. But protection is not the same as alignment. Let's not mix the two. We must be able to transition from this old identity into this new identity that we are shaping from the work that we are doing. It's not in vain. Write this question and answer yourself later. What version of you are you shedding in this season? Question 2. What did that old version of you help you survive? What did that old version of you help you survive? Let me give you an example. Avoidance may have helped me cope with criticism. I don't want to be criticized, so I'd rather avoid. Overworking may have helped me feel valuable. You end up people-pleasing without realizing it. That's just an example. Tolerating disrespect may have helped you maintain peace. By the way, don't shame that old version. It did its job. Just want you to be able to transition from the old you to the new you. So, from answering what version of you are you shedding in this season, you should be able to answer, what did that old version help you survive? Third question, what emotions surface when you stop operating from survival? For example, fear. Do you get cold feet because you're used to surviving? You're used to your coping mechanisms that you have been running to. And now you have stopped operating from survival mode. What are those emotions that are going to surface? Are you going to feel empty, or do you feel empty? Grief. I miss the old me when I used to do this and I used to do that. Is it uncertainty? You feel angry? Growth is emotional. It's not just strategic. Yes, we want to grow, we draw our graphs and all, but it's also emotional because there's a piece of you that's going away. Sometimes you'll feel empty, but that emptiness is making room for what needs to come in. That grief has to happen. If you don't grieve the old, then you might relapse. So grieve it and move on. Allow the pain to come through and move on. Acknowledge those emotions that surface because you've stopped operating in survival mode. Even if the fear comes, don't feel like there's something wrong with you. No, that means you're able to recognize that is something that's shifting. I'm transitioning from the old me to the new season. Somehow, a little fear has to come in. An example of emotions that surface when you're operating from survival mode. What is survival mode? I gave an example yesterday. I experienced challenges in the business. Instead of focusing on what exactly is going on, where have I failed, what are the standard operating procedures that we have not followed, what are the systems and structures that we need to put in place, what do we need to refine? That overwhelming experience, you're the leader, this is your business, you just get so overwhelmed and you look for a coping mechanism. And my coping mechanism was investing more. That's an example. It built a pattern that I kept doing exactly the same thing. It became normal thing for me for 15 years. You go down, you come back up. You don't look back at what exactly happened. You don't audit and you quickly jump into another investment. And then that's like a coping. That was my example. That's why I want you to answer that question yourself. As you are transitioning, first of all, you need to name what exactly happened. You need to be aware. Go to my YouTube, Build Beyond You. You'll find the awareness session that we had on Tuesday. You have to be aware, first of all. If you're not aware, then you're going to waste time. When you become a leader, when you go back to discovery with the vision board and you say, okay, who am I? What are these abilities that I'm bringing to this level? And what are my responsibilities? What is expected of me? And then you start nurturing that to ensure that you continue developing that. You don't sit and relax. This is what I've been assigned to. No, you continue nurturing that because a lot is going to be exposed. Then you move forward to now. This is my position. How do I maintain and continue in this before I move on to the next? And the proof of this stewardship is that the consistency, those repetitive patterns. Then you get a very clear process. This is how I do things. Now, how you know that you are doing well in stewardship when you are even able to pass it on? Can that business survive when you get incapacitated? Or when your leaders, let's say if it's your business, when your leaders leave, what happens to your business? Does it collapse? Ask yourself, what systems and structures have I put in place? Today we are looking at transitioning from survival mode to stewardship. I'm leaving the old behind. I'm entering into a new season. But we have to be realistic and ask ourselves these questions. What version of you are you shedding? And what exactly did the old version of you help you survive? If you can answer those questions, you will transition comfortably to the next. If you don't answer those questions, you will relapse. You will go back to the familiar, meanwhile without realizing. And I've given you an example. If you are tolerant of disrespect as a leader because you don't want to have conflicts with your team, you want to be seen as the one who, gets people together and you're not confronting these little things that are growing in your team. They look invisible. Weeds look like wheat. They can grow alongside the wheat and you think they are the same. But when you're grooming them there in your own business and before you know it, it pulls you down. So better for you to pay attention to all the patterns, all the details. It's for your own good. We're talking about stewardship this month. The only way you know that, okay, I am ready to take on this next project is when this project can do without you. You have developed systems and structures for it. You have taught the same processes, not that you're handing it over. No, as a leader, this is expected of you. The fourth question, what are you tempted to run back to because it feels familiar? What are you tempted to run back to because it feels familiar? Let me give an example. Starting something new. I've given you that example. You're tempted to run to starting something new because it's familiar, allowing disrespect, avoiding confrontation, overcommitting. Those are familiar environments, familiar experiences. Now you have to name yours. Those are just examples. Familiarity is not always healthy. So if you can name it. And the last question, what would it look like to move forward intentionally instead of reactively? Let me give you an example. Set a boundary a week and say, we don't cross this line. This is the limit. That is intentional. That is not reactive because you're doing it even before anything happens. For example, you make a conscious decision of staying consistent even when you're not seen. And instead of expanding, refine this that is right in your face. What are the boundaries that you're going to set? How consistent can you be to nurture what is placed in front of you? Instead of running to expand, how about you refine? How about you address the negative behavioral patterns like disrespect, unhealed trauma, all these things immediately instead of enduring it? If it doesn't serve you, say goodbye. Transition must be proactive, not emotional. So when we talk about shedding, it's not I am losing myself, I have collapsed. It is consolidation. You're not losing yourself. You are losing what cannot go with you. And shedding requires gentleness. Because if you move too fast, you will rebuild the same pattern in a new form without even realizing it. It stretches because it requires patience too. If you do not name, if you don't recognize, if you don't identify, if you don't describe those survival patterns, the old you, then you won't be able to see the difference. So this week, before you go about teaching others, before you think about multiplication, think about stabilizing you. You cannot raise stable leaders if you yourself are in emotional turbulence. Let me give you something to go with. Write this down. Identify one pattern that you are shedding that came from the question that I gave you earlier. Identify one boundary you must implement. Identify one pattern that you're shedding. Identify one boundary, only just one boundary that you must implement. And then commit to consistency in one area only. One area only. Do not build anything new. Just commit to consistency in one area. But you must have gone through the process that I have been taking you through. That's why I want you to go to my YouTube, Build Beyond You. Listen to the awareness class. Then listen to to the consistency class and then listen to what interrupts that consistency. Listen to today's, when you, what is it that you're shedding? It will now make sense. We want to stabilize our stewardship, and at the end we want to have sustainable leadership. Awareness reveals the assignment. Consistency nurtures it, because those repetitive, intentional activities or tasks that you carry out is nurturing what has been entrusted to you. The boundaries protect it. The transition stabilizes it. You must go through the transition phase, not just move from here to there. The transition takes work. You have to be patient because it will be tried and tested. And don't forget, in all this, as you become aware, consistent, building your boundaries and transition, remember, there are giants on the way. There's resistance, but overcome that resistance and push on. After we have transitioned, that's how we can teach. You're not behind. You're not broken. You've not lost yourself. You are transitioning. And when you handle this transition correctly, it will become authority. That's what gives you authority. Thank you. So, I guess we don't have it. Thank you so much for joining. Have yourselves a very beautiful day. Thank you. Bye-bye.